Good morning. Is my audio okay?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be having asked to participate in this wonderful event. I apologize that I could not listen to most of the speakers. I'm coming to you from Boston, and it's very early in the morning. But I am very happy to be here. I'm hoping to leave a lot of time for discussion since I always enjoy the interaction part of presentation, uh, even more than the presentation. Okay. And I just have very simple points to make, and we can elaborate on them in Q&A if you wish. And uh, the take-home message, and I heard it in the previous speakers' talk as well. The previous message is the following simple message, and that is that if we are going to ask people to come back to a pre-pandemic uh, way of doing things, then it better be really good. Okay? Let me give an example, not from education, but from working in the office. Recently, Jamie Dimon, the chairman of JP Morgan, the largest bank in the United States. So Jamie Dimon said that everyone will have to return to the office, no exceptions, and that there'll be no Zoom meetings. Well, you can imagine what happened. There was a huge pushback. That people complained that the city administration was not understanding the experience that we went through, and that there are advantages to being able to work from home, at least in some hybrid manner. And so Jamie Dimon had to walk back what he said, and now he, like every other corporation in the world, is trying to figure out what the right combination is. Same with teaching. If we're going to ask our students to return to the classroom in person, then our teaching better be really good. Okay? Why is that? Well, students have seen that they can learn remotely. It may not be the best, and it may not. It may cause a lot of problems as they go through. But the fact of the matter is, the simple fact of the matter is, the students saw that it is possible to learn remotely. So if we're going to ask students to come back, then our teaching better be really good. In the last year or so during the pandemic, as MIT and everyone else went online, I have been interviewing MIT faculty members about their experience with online teaching, and on the point of our teaching better be good. I think that there is something very good to learn from at least my experience with having spoken to something around 100 faculty members at MIT. The first thing I noticed right away, this was last April when we went online, was that there was a renewed focus on teaching. Okay? Every faculty member I spoke to talked about how they were excited about these ideas they were going to try out in the online format. Okay? One faculty member mentioned to me that about 1 month into teaching, that his department used to have faculty meetings once a month that was not well attended. But now that they're teaching online, they're meeting every week, and inevitably the discussion turned to teaching. How do you teach? How do you use the Zoom? How do you use tablets? How do you use the chat feature? Okay? And this continued for the entire semester. So there's this renewed focus on the practice of teaching, something that I wrote with Megan Purdue in a November 2020 Inside Higher Education article. Okay, it is online and it's open. So I asked people, why is there this renewed focus on teaching? And they told me something that as soon as I heard it, it made sense. Before the pandemic, before teaching online, we were teaching in person, of course, and we thought that we knew how to do this because that's how we were taught. We were teaching the way that we were taught. We tried to improve, and most of us have, but the basic principles are there and were there to begin with. But with online teaching, all that was taken away, and we had to start from scratch. Okay, and so we had to start from scratch and think about the most basic things. How do you deliver a lecture over Zoom? How do you interact with students? How do you get students to interact with each other? Okay, all the things that we took for granted in in-person teaching, now we had to figure out every step of the way. And this has led to professors, teachers, really thinking about the practice of teaching and taking it, I think, a little bit more seriously than many had before. We all take research seriously. We want to innovate in research. With teaching, I think it was more that we wanted to do good teaching, but we didn't really think about innovation, most of us. Okay, but now with this new format that we have been given, we have an opportunity to innovate, and I have seen many innovations, okay, that I think will survive post-pandemic. So this renewed focus on teaching. Something else that I noticed, MIT has been pushing to for a couple of years to educate not just the student as an academic, the student intellect, but the holistic, the whole student, right? Not just the intellect, but also the spirit. Teaching sort of provided one kind of answer, and that is that by teaching online, we were in the students' living quarters much of the time. We saw how they were living. We saw the kinds of challenges that they are facing. We saw that they are having difficulty with Wi-Fi. We saw that they were having difficulty finding a quiet space to teach. We had to compete for their attention with their family and even with their pets. So we got to see how the students live and the challenges that have been thrown at them. Pandemic, but also pre-pandemic as well. As I'm sure you know, the online teaching has exacerbated the kinds of inequalities that were there to begin with. Okay. So the idea of teaching the holistic student, I think that we're becoming much more aware that of who our students are. And one of the interviews, a professor mentioned that he took time before and after class and even during class to allow students to discuss in a free forum whatever was bothering them. And he was surprised by the intensity of these discussions, much more intense than in regular office hours. Okay. As I said, because of this shift to a completely alien format of teaching, we had to figure things out from scratch. One of the things that I heard over and over again was the challenge that the teachers are facing in simply keeping students' attention. Okay, keeping students' attention is the most basic assumption in learning in a in-person class. As soon as we walk into the classroom, the students pay attention, or they're supposed to pay attention. But in a Zoom classroom, as one person said, attention is a scarce resource. And so one of the things that I noticed teachers doing was to get students' attention and maintain their attention throughout the class. Okay? Use of technology, use of chat rooms, the chat feature, among all the features I have spoken to, has had this huge impact. Okay? I had a very eminent biologist who teaches with two other very eminent biologists, one of whom is a Nobel laureate, and he was going on and on about the chat feature. Now, here is someone who is probably in line to win the Nobel Prize at some point, and he was going on and on about the chat. And so this again is a example of a renewed focus on teaching, and he was saying that he was going to teach his collaborator, the Nobel laureate, how to teach with chat. So I think that there are lots of interesting things, lots of exciting things going on, but the bottom line is that when we go back to in-person, our teaching better be really good. Otherwise, our students are going to be very disappointed. So, let me stop there, and love to interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shigeru. We're getting a bit of feedback from your mic there, I think. So does anyone in the webinar, would they like to ask a question? Yeah, we have Steve. Steve, I'll just allow you to unmute your mic.
Thank you. That's a very interesting presentation. Sorry, I'm getting some echo here. I just wanted to discuss the issue of the chat function, because it seems to me if we were in a live teaching situation and there were students passing notes to each other and reading notes, we would know that we had lost their attention. So I don't know, especially in terms of our pedagogic practice as teachers, how we can expect this multitasking, which is a nice simple term, to work in terms of keeping students' attention, because perhaps it's better to think of a different way to use the chat, maybe to turn the chat off or to have only things that could be useful for reference at a later point in the chat rather than ongoing discussions. Just like to know what you think.
You're muted, Shigeru.
Is there still feedback?
There was. I had to turn your mic off. Sorry, apologies. So we wouldn't get any feedback from other people speaking. So okay. Yeah.
So thank you for the comment. You know, when I first started to teach with the Zoom, and I noticed right away that there was this continuous flow of conversation in the chat. And initially, I was a little taken aback. Exactly the reaction that you said, that students were sort of passing notes virtually. But then when I looked at the chat, I noticed that students were posing questions to me, which showed me that they were actually paying attention. Not only that, students started to answer other students' questions. And so they were engaging very much, I think, in my presentation in a way that at least I haven't seen in a regular in-person lecture. And so I think more and more people have noticed this, the idea that students are really integrating their own thoughts and interactions into the lecture in a way that at least visibly we can see, and we can now when we are talking in person. So many of us are trying to figure out a way to recreate the chat experience in person. I'm not sure how we do it, but it is the one feature across all faculty members, across all disciplines, that's gotten rave reviews.